Good evening, and welcome to Riderpiece Theater. Me, Alistair Dayhawk, and tonight, me proud to present Kamen Rider Gotcha, Episode 18, Secrets Revealed. Well, guys, this episode, we have gotten a whole lot of secrets revealed, and my theories of who could be Hotaro's father, at least two of my theories, are thrown out the door. Now it begs the question, who is Hotaro's father after this episode? Because it's proven that Fuga is not the father, and the master is clearly not the father. So I can only guess it could be Minato sensei, which is just a small percentage that he could be the father, or the father could be someone within the Alchemist Association, or third, he could be just a regular person. Which, by the way, if indeed it turns out that Hotaro's dad is a regular person, my question is, why the secrecy? But we're heading into 19. There's still time to uncover this mystery of who the father is, but now we know for sure that it's not the master, and it's certainly not Fuga. So for those who are in the love train for Hotaro and Kuro to have a relationship, that is pretty much safe. So I'm going to do something interesting for this video. As you may know that my videos are usually over 30 minutes. So I figured I want to challenge myself for a bit and see if I could go less than 20 minutes and just point out the important highlights of this episode, because for the most part, I have a lot of questions, and the writers, I personally believe that they really missed an opportunity when it comes to Daybreak, because now the alchemy school is under the control of the master, so it's closed for right now. And with Daybreak, knowing that, okay, here's highlight number 1, Daybreak is Hotaro from the future. And I personally think that the writers really missed an opportunity here where future Hotaro could have helped not just himself in the current time, but also help the other kids with their alchemy, because as of right now, they have no school and they have no teacher. Which, by the way, I don't want to go to this rant again, but Minato sensei is not a teacher, especially when he sends these 4 students just to go chemi hunting. Again, I never seen him in a classroom teaching these kids how to do alchemy at all. I don't want to go through this rant again, but I'm saying, they never had a teacher to begin with anyways. And so now we know that Daybreak is future Hotaro, and now we know that the reason I believe he came back into the present timeline is because, according to him, 5 years, 5 years, the master has taken control of the world, at least half of the world. So I'm guessing he went back in time to prevent that. So that's one highlight. Highlight number 2, Minato sensei has indeed erased himself from the school that never was, because Hotaro starts a new semester, and yet he is living in the Twilight Zone, because everybody except for himself and Kuro doesn't know who Minato sensei is. And they have a new teacher, and he's all, it's so eerie. He's depressed now because again, Minato sensei is gone, and also the alchemy school is officially closed. And then another highlight is that the moon malgam has been capturing the majority of Hotaro's friends, all except Kaijiki. So Kaijiki, we saw him in the classroom, but he doesn't get kidnapped by the moon malgam. So Renge, Sabimaru, and Kuro all get kidnapped, which leads poor Hotaro all alone. But of course he has Daybreak, which leads him to really talk to Daybreak like, hey, I'm giving you my gacha igniter. Take it. And this is where Hotaro decided, like, look, I appreciate the help for lending me, the gacha igniter, but I need to do this on my own. I want to create one for myself. Is there a way for me to do that? Which leads Daybreak to say, yes, there is a way for you to create your own. You just need to find the object in question in order to create the igniter. But in order to do so, he needs to go back to the past and get it. And this is where Daybreak tells Hotaro that the master has taken control half of the world, and then gives Hotaro the Time Lord Alchemy card for him to go back to the past. When in the past and where, we don't know yet. And this is where Hotaro, but before he gets sent back, of course Daybreak tells Hotaro that under no circumstance are you allowed to meet up with your past self, or else the consequences will be dire. And so he gets sent back to the past. And then this is the part where we as an audience have a new question that needs to be answered, which is Hotaro is sent back 10 years, and he gets sent back to the place where he met Fuga for the first time in the Ouroboros realm. The realm that he met Fuga, he met the Chemi cards, where he received the gacha driver, and of course where he met the weird sisters and the quote-unquote supposed death of Fuga. So my question is, how in the hell did Kid Fuga manage to stumble across this realm? Did the Chemis invite him in? Did he stumble across the realm? Or maybe the father, decided to take Hotaro into this realm, and that's where he met Hopper 1 and Steamroy. All these things are popping up in my head. So hopefully in the future we will find out how in the hell he managed to he stumbled across this realm. So idiot Hotaro sees himself as a kid playing in a sandbox with Hopper 1 and Steamroy, and Hotaro was all excited that, hey, I met them for the first time, and he's so happy, and he gets to witness Hopper 1 and Steamroy create a pair of goggles for Kid Hotaro, because according to him, he wanted to get a pair of goggles, but according to the dad, he said no, and therefore, the Chemis, with their alchemy, with their magic, it is magic, they created a pair of goggles for the kid, which causes Hotaro to believe that I think this is the item I need to bring back. But he doesn't know how, but the idiot Hotaro, without a plan, just slips, and this is where Hotaro meets his kid self. They touch each other because, the shoe. So the kid, just gives the shoe back to himself. And this is where you see electricity coming out from both of the hands. And the Time Lord card gets all busted, as if someone was stopping on the clock. And that's the severe consequence. I know, it's weird, right? Now, we get a little bit fast forward. Hopper 1 senses danger. The Hotaros and Hopper 1 goes to the danger area where all three of them meet the sisters and also the master for the first time. Now, if the master were indeed the father, do you think that Hotaro would have said, "Hey, that's my father. Who are these three women that are following him?" He didn't mention that at all. So instead, the Hotaros follow them, and of course, the master finds the book where we see a drawing of the gacha driver, and from his perspective, he says that this is it. This is the key to the door to Kingdom Hearts, air quotes, aka the key to the door to darkness. And now we get to see Fuga after Sabunito attacks the villains, turn the poor Catholics into gold. Fuga steps in, and this is where, again, question. If Fuga were the father, don't you think that Kid Hotaro would have said as much, like, "Hey, that's my dad. Why is he here in this building?" So my two theories are thrown out the door. We get to see this fight between Fuga and the master, but before that, we have another highlight. I think highlight number 3. I may have miscounted, but another highlight is that it was the master that framed Fuga for the events that happened. And he used his magic to implant fellow alchemists to believe that Fuga is the traitor. He was the one that caused chaos. He was the one who stole all the alchemy cards. He did all that just to, frame him. So Fuga, around this time, was on the run. And so we get to see the fight between Fuga and the Master. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Voldemort versus Dumbledore, Gandalf versus Saruman. And it just gave me those flashbacks for a little bit. And then Fuga decides to use his Ring of Power to, I don't know what happened, but he was trying to take the Kemi cards away from the fight. But of course, Kid Hotaro jumped in between them, protects them, and this is where current Hotaro comes in and protects him. And this is where Fuga destroys the master's glass ball, which causes a beam of light to occur. Next you know, Hotaro's on the ground. And then when he comes to, this is where past Hotaro gives the goggles to himself as a thank you for protecting him. And this is where Hotaro immediately returns back to his timeline. And now we get another highlight where Fuga comes in again. He is not the father of Hotaro because, again, Hotaro would have responded like, "Hey, Dosa, what the hell just happened?" It wasn't the case. So Fuga goes to the kid and thanks him, but also, like, "You've been a very brave little kid." And he erases the memories of what just happened. So now we know that it was Fuga that erased the memories involving the chemis. And now we get sent back to the present, and he gets the goggles. And this is where Daybreak tells Hotaro that in 5 years' time, the master will rule at least half of the world. And this is where Hotaro says, I need to stop this. We need to stop this. So what is it that I need to do to create my own igniter? And this is where Daybreak tells him what to do. And Hotaro, for the first time in 18 episodes, uses alchemy to turn this pair of goggles into his own personal gacha igniter. Now, a little bit fast forward, we get to the showdown between the moon malgam and Hotaro. Daybreak is in the back, in the sidelines, to see if if trouble comes in, he will come in and help. Now, this is where we get to see the new form, which, mind you, well, before I get too ahead of myself here, he uses the gacha igniter, and Daybreak was expecting that, hey, he's going to use my form, but lo and behold, it wasn't. It was a completely different form entirely, even though Hotaro dubbed this new form as Fire Gacha, even though it's all blue, and the armor, which I like to call, it's a jetpack. It's a jetpack because you have armor and you have another chest plate with flames coming out and engines in the back. So it's just nothing more than an engine pack. And Daybreak was shocked to see that form because he was expecting, another Daybreak. But it wasn't the case. And this is where Daybreak was like, wait a minute, this is new. Is it possible that Hotaro changed the future? Because now we get to see this flashback where Daybreak picks up the very same goggles. But I think in Daybreak's case, he believes that Hotaro changed the future. And then we get to see how Fire Gacha works. It's just speed and powers of enhancement, because in the next episode he uses the igniter for a different form, and it's just enhancement, powers of enhancement, and it's not his ultimate form because it's too early. And usually when ultimate forms debut is usually on the tail end of the 20s, usually. And unfortunately, with that form and forms before the ultimate form, they don't get used quite often anymore. It is what it is. And also, enemies are more powerful now, and the previous forms are considered no good. It's just the way it is. And so, Hotaro defeats the malgam. He rescues his friends everybody was shocked because when his friends were rescued, they were in awe and just like, hey, that's a new form. Hotaro has gotten stronger now, and he rescued the moon malgam. And this is where we get another highlight, and which is Daybreak's identity is confirmed. He is Hotaro from the future. So after he saves his friends, captures the card, this is where we get to see Daybreak for the last time. Hotaro apologizes to Daybreak because he broke the rule. And the poor Kemi card, the time card, was, again, it's all busted up. And Daybreak was like, oh man, it looks like I will have to go back to my current time much sooner than I thought. And this is where he gives his last parting words to Hotaro. And when Daybreak mentions gacha, and Hotaro was like, yeah, I'm going to get my gacha, blah, 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 blah. But then the nail on the head hit him and realized something. And he just turns around and wanted to ask Daybreak, I assume the end of the sentence was like, are you me? But it didn't happen, because the moment he turned around to face Daybreak for the last time, he disappeared. And then the last bit of the episode is the master now knows that Daybreak is gone, so that Hotaro is the only Kamen Rider left to deal with, and he sends Minato sensei to finish the job. And then we get the last highlight of this episode, which is the Kitchen Inose Alliance is now formed. It's like the Kamen Rider version of Dumbledore's army. And that's pretty much it. Those are the main important highlights of this episode. What I want to wrap up is with Daybreak. I wish Daybreak would have stayed longer, because it's confirmed that it's Hotaro from the future. They could have easily pulled a Sam from Kamen Rider, from Power Rangers SBD, where Sam from the future was it? I forgot the name of the Power Ranger officially, but he returned from the future to help the Rangers fight Emperor Grum. And he stayed for the majority of the season. So I wish that Daybreak would have just stayed for the remainder of the season until his task was done. But unfortunately, he disappeared. Of course, Daybreak will never reveal that he is Hotaro from the future, because I believe that will come with severe consequences. So I'm guessing that he would have just named himself Daybreak as an alias, and I would have imagined that Daybreak would have been a perfect teacher for these kids, because for right now, they have no teacher at all. So they're pretty much, they're on their own, unless, of course, the professor is willing to teach them. That remains to be seen. However, is there a possibility that Spanner could be the teacher? Because let's face it, Hotaro is not Harry Potter. And we just seen that Hotaro used alchemy for the first time after 18 episodes. Yeah, I mean, but do you think that Spanner will take up the mantle of being the teacher, considering that he is supposedly an A-list alchemist, according to him? Is he willing to teach them? Of course, he may be a little bit reluctant to teach Hotaro, even though we're seeing that Spanner is warming up towards him just a little bit. But in my opinion, I think Spanner could be a good teacher if the professor does not take up that mantle. But egos aside, I mean, these kids, they're at a disadvantage right now, and Minato sensei will go after them. So, yeah, again, Hotaro is not a Harry Potter, but I'm guessing Renge and Sabimaru, I think with them, they have a chance to not only be able to capture more chemies without the items from the alchemy school, but I get this feeling that, they don't really need a teacher with those two, even though I personally think that either Spanner or the professor really need to take up the mantle, but that's just my opinion. Anyways, that is it. I try my best to keep it under 20 minutes. Hopefully I pass, but chances are I don't think I did. But anyways, if you've seen episode 18, did you like it? Did you dislike it? And even though I have my notes in front of me, I may have missed a couple of things. I decided not to go into extreme detail on this one because I figured maybe I will try to give you guys the very important highlights and see how that goes. Hopefully I did a good job. Give a like if you like it, and please subscribe. And also, tell me in the comments below, were you shocked about these revelations? Were you like disappointed that Fuga or the master wasn't the father. Do you have your own theories of how Hotaro managed to stumble across the realm where he met the Kemis and Fuga from the pilot episode? Do you think that they could manage without a teacher? Personally, I think they can't, because Minato sensei, to me, was not a teacher. Because all he did was to send them into Kemi hunting, and that's it. But do you think that the professor and or Spanner will be willing to teach them now that Minato sensei is out of the picture? So yeah, thank you so much. Please like if you like it, and please subscribe. And I'll see you all on the other side of Oblivion. Johnny!